We're about halfway through our gubernatorial forum. If you're just joining us, Republican Tom Foley, once again, is not with us tonight. We had ongoing discussions with his campaign. He declined our invitation to participate in this forum. As we move into the second half of the debate, the forum, I will remind you, we're going commercial-free to maximize our time and your time and the candidates' time to make themselves heard. Hot-button issue during Governor Malloy's first term and during Joe Visconti's campaign, gun control. Susan, do you have a question?
Governor Malloy, I guess what changes would you like to see made in the coming years to Connecticut's gun law? I know that a lot of the gun rights supporters think that you want to make even more, more wide-ranging, more far-reaching gun control changes. Is that something that is on your agenda?
No. We passed very rigorous legislation. We did it on a bipartisan basis. That actually was negotiated by 4 people. 2 of them Republicans and two of them Democrats. Both of the Republicans, by the way, are supporting Tom Foley, who now says he wants to repeal that legislation. What I would do is some other things. I actually believe that hunters should have the ability to hunt on Sundays. I have supported that legislation in the past, and I will continue to support it. What I won't do is repeal the legislation. That's what Tom Foley wants to do. I know that Mr. Visconti has his own take on it, but basically he too wants to gut that legislation. There's only one candidate for governor who actually wants to keep that legislation in place. Why? Because we've seen a decline in homicides by 32%, murders by 32%. If you look at the 11 numbers and compare it to the 13 numbers, 32% reduction. Why? Because we've seen crime in Bridgeport drop by 20% and major drops in both Hartford and New Haven as we've combated street crime, much of that being committed with guns from out of state that have not heretofore been subject to universal background checks. They should be. Every state, every gun being sold should be subject to universal background checks. That's what we did in Connecticut. You can't buy a gun without a background check. As a result, we have prevented people from buying guns, including one young woman who wanted to buy a gun and then go to a school and then shoot more children. We stopped that.
Mr. Visconti, piggybacking onto that, is there a way to make Connecticut's gun laws perhaps more palatable to gun rights advocates? And also, how would you work with the Democratic-controlled legislature on those efforts?
Well, the gun crime that the governor just mentioned in the inner cities, this gun law doesn't affect that. Guns are illegal everywhere, in cities and urban areas, not even in cities where there's crime. Lawful gun owners aren't those people. There are background checks, but there are not background checks for criminals. And so this is the fallacy of the Malloy administration and the liberal agenda that somehow we're going to pass all these laws and criminals are going to follow these laws. They're not going to follow these laws. Gun owners have basically been blamed for Sandy Hook. This is what's happened. I had to declare 2 magazines because they hold 13 rounds, and I bought them in the 1980s at Hoffman's Gun Center in Newington. And when I bought them and I registered them with the state police with background checks and a gun permit, we found that, look at this, there's serial number, there's a model number, there's a year I bought it, and if you research that data, you'll see that that gun came with 2 13-round magazines when you bought it at Hoffman. So the state police already know what came with that gun. Why did I have to declare this magazine? What did that have to do with Sandy Hook? Why do gun owners have to register and get certificates to buy ammunition for their shotguns? Well, hunters didn't have anything to do with this. Why did Sandy Hook, instead of school safety and providing state dollars and really taking a look at what we really need to prevent another Sandy Hook, and that would be police at every school outside, like we have in West Hartford, and our high school and middle schools, and the state actually putting some money towards that to help the towns so that we can guarantee to parents, to grandparents who pick the children up, that those schools are safe. That's the best thing we could have done. But no, we went to the hunters. We went to the law-abiding gun owners. So I would put a bill in to repeal the magazine limitations. If they wanted to do something, they could have looked at the 30-round magazine that Adam Lanza used and just targeted that. But they didn't. They went to handguns. They went everywhere because there is a liberal agenda. Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, there is an agenda to export this liberal agenda in some kind of utopian world where we're going to get rid of all the guns. They can't stop illegal immigrants coming into New Haven, and this governor won't stop that either after the election. They can't stop drugs coming to this country by the cargo ship. But in a utopian world, they want to remove guns. This is the Second Amendment. If it was the First Amendment that people were looking to curb and infringe on, I think the newscasters and the print media would be very upset if we told you could only print 2 paragraphs. These are law-abiding gun owners. I will work with the Democrats. I will work with conservative Democrats who voted against this, and with a timely fashion, put an amendment in here and there for the things I think can get passed when the time is passed, and horse trade with them. This is a constitutional issue, and it was a political tragedy gained. This horrible tragedy was gained for political advantage.
Governor?
I don't know how to respond to that, quite frankly. Our state had one of the worst murders committed in it in the United States history. A person took guns, into a school and killed 20 children and 6 adults. I was there that day. I understand what a large capacity magazine means to a person who wants to kill as many people as he possibly can in as short a period of time. I saw the results. I still wear bracelets, one for the Sandy Hook community overall and another one purple for a child who was the last funeral that I attended. I made a solemn oath that I would do everything I could to make our children as safe as possible. The reality of large capacity magazines is they do allow a madman or a disturbed individual or someone with malice, or for that matter, someone who wants to fight against the federal government for whatever reason, to kill as many people in as short a period of time as possible. I'm sorry that people have been inconvenienced by having to register the ones they already had, but I'm also proud that we've stopped the sale of those things in the future. That's why you were inconvenienced and asked to register, but you still have them. Those of you who are law-abiding individuals have those same rights that you always had, but children are safer. And you know, I've done a lot of things that people have disagreed with, but this is one where people overwhelmingly agree that we should do everything in our power to make sure that children are not killed in schools. That's why we've made millions and millions of dollars in investment in security in those school buildings. At Sandy Hook, someone was able to take those large capacity magazines and actually shoot out a glass door. Now those doors are being replaced with reinforced glass so that that can't happen again, no matter how many magazines you have.
Mr. Visconti?
Yes, the magazines can't be carried. I have 2 magazines. One, it wasn't an inconvenience, it was a constitutional infringement, Governor. I have 2 magazines. One cannot be carried because it has to be in the gun. So this is not just an inconvenience. If you wanted the children to be safe, you would appropriate the money, you would have your studies with Sandy Hook, and you would put a police officer in every school in this state and help each town, and even the towns that have officers from one town to the other overtime, as they work on road utility construction, we can find a program that actually makes sure, the only way to make sure is to know that you have an officer in front of every school. And I don't know why liberals are so against that. Because that every grandparent and parent that go to pick up their children at school, if there is a madman, he doesn't care about the magazine, he'll find one. This is erroneous, and this again is a tragedy, and it was emotional for the governor. I understand that, as it was for John McKinney, and I understand that. But our constitutional rights and the fact that we haven't funded, really funded, cut the things that we can cut the non-essential, but put the money into school safety, and that means a police officer.
Let me say this. You've heard Mr. Visconti. You know that Tom Foley would sign a repeal, which is his way of urging a repeal. There's only one candidate running for governor right now who will not repeal that legislation. I will not. I never, ever, ever will. If that means that you won't vote for me because you agree with Mr. Visconti or with Mr. Foley, then that means I won't get your vote. But I have done everything in my power during the time that I've been governor to make children as safe as they possibly can be. And I believe we have. But we have not only done that. Homicide, murders are down 32%. Lowest crime rate in 40 years in Connecticut right now. And the murder rate this year is even lower than it was last year. Of course we're making progress. And we are sending more money to schools. And we are spending money on mental health. We're doing all of those things. But guns do in fact kill people.
Governor, there was a Quinnipiac poll that came out that said the majority believed in the gun bill, but the majority also believed that it went too far. And where it went too far, it was where the constitutional infringement. on the magazine limitation arbitrarily. Why wasn't it 11 bullets? Who came up with that number? Who wrote that bill? I want to know who wrote the bill in the legislature. You signed a bill. And I would like to find out who wrote the bill, where it came from. Because this is important to our constitutional rights. School safety, the safest way to protect our children is to have a police officer at the school. I have to say it enough times because, again, this tragedy was politicized, and hunters and law-abiding gun owners have been blamed, basically.
Governor, I'll ask you for a quick answer, and then we've got
it hasn't been politicized. You don't go through the loss of 26 people and think about politics. You know who wrote the legislation. It was 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. That's what happened. And the majority or minority leader in the Senate and the minority leader in the House were the people who actually negotiated that bill. I was locked out. I wasn't in the negotiations. You know that as well.
all right.